Welcome. Today we have Peggy Oberthier. She is a medical intuitive, energy channeler, and spiritual teacher who helps people release stored emotional patterns and reconnect with their intuitive gifts and soul purpose. Her work blends intuitive insight, energy awareness, and grounded psychological understanding to support deep personal transformation. Originally a teacher and well-being specialist working in a youth detention center, Peggy spent much of her life as an atheist before a profound spiritual awakening shifted the direction of her life. Through years of exploration into consciousness, energy, and the intuitive field, she discovered a natural ability to read energy and channel guidance that helps people access deeper clarity and healing. Peggy now works with clients around the world through private sessions, group transmissions, and in collaboration with other energy workers, and has appeared on a number of spiritual podcasts and YouTube channels sharing her journey from skepticism to intuitive work. Welcome, Peggy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Megan. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yes, I'm excited for our conversation. So, the first question I'm going to ask you today is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
I do love beginning with that question, and I have heard you on other podcasts, so I was aware that you were going to ask me. Straight away, for me, it is just the deep realization that you are connected to this beautiful, pure source, infinite energy, and that you're never not been separate from it. And when I sit in my meditations and I can connect to this divine source, creational energy, I feel this overwhelming love and bliss and gratitude because I've never not been separate, and I've always been held, and I've always been loved, and it's a beautiful space to be in. So for me, that's what it means. I guess it's a bit more of the Buddhist path. Really hard for me to understand the concept of no self, which is really that Buddhist, but it's just, yeah, that we are actually beautiful, divine, creational beings, and that our thoughts are just literally constructs. That's that deep realization and enlightenment that we can create anything, whether it's healing or anything we need in our lives. So that's what that's what
I
I've
like that.
discovered in the last few years. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that we are creators and that we have the ability to really alter the course of our lives, although we sometimes fall into that default programming of the cog in the wheel and that we're not actually the wheel. And I think that's where enlightenment comes in, is recognizing that we are our own wheel and we have a choice in that momentum.
Yeah. That's given me goosebumps actually, Megan. I love that. That's beautiful.
Excellent. In the introduction, we allude to a situation that happened while you were working at the youth detention center. And everyone that I have on the podcast has a pivotal story, in most cases, that changed the trajectory of their lives. And as I say, drew a line in the sand. Was that dark night of the soul for you? What happened? And where did it lead you after that?
Yeah. It was a few little things that started to pique my interest in and question my atheism. The first thing was this person that I worked with told me at a work drinks about his near-death experience. And I was like a really staunch atheist from the time I finished my degree in history and politics and religion. I thought, no, there can't be a God that would allow all this suffering. And so that was something that I really stuck with. And then he piqued my interest, and I went, I think this could be something. And it really gave me this spark of curiosity. A few months later, I got caught up in a riot at this prison that I was working at. And I'd been there for 5 years. It had been my whole identity, this selfless service, this everything that my whole self-worth was reliant on this external validation, right? I am the super mom. I get up at 5:30. I go to the gym. I put on a crock pot. I'm for the day. I go and I just don't stop. I'm the resilient one at work. I support all the young people. I can handle any of the worst criminals, any of the worst, and I'm resilient. It was this sort of identity of being that was all external validation. I needed other people to tell me that I was doing a good job, my boss, and then I got caught up in this riot. I had to hide in a closet when this boy broke out of a classroom and he smashed all the windows. And I came out and I had glass smashed all over me when he broke into the classroom that I was in. And it was terrifying. It was awful. And I could see, and I realize now, I could see in my clairvoyance, I could see that this was where the whole prison was heading for a number of various reasons. But what happened was the whole place was destroyed. So I didn't have a place to go to for work. And what followed was this sort of accusation that I was psychologically traumatized, and because they were trying to cover themselves. And I said, no, I'm really resilient. But it was forced period of rest. I had to have a week off. And they told me you can't come back to work. You've been through a lot. And I really struggled with it. And because when you are completely reliant on everyone else telling you that you are competent, you are intelligent, you are all those things. And then it was all stripped away. And I'd worked full time for a very long time. I was broken. I was really broken. And I ended up seeing this psychic who was my friend had referred her to me, and she knew everything about me. And I thought, how is this even possible? So it sparked this journey of just discovering myself separate from being and doing and constantly giving and overgiving and this suffering as a status symbol. I think Brene Brown calls it that, this sort of martyrdom and I was in constant fight or flight when I worked in this prison. Like it was constant. I didn't realize it until after I left. And my body was telling me all of these things for a very long time. I'd had so many digestive issues. I had chronic pain and osteoporosis, IBS. All of my body was breaking down. My mind was like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. And so I had to really connect to myself and connect to the parts of me that were wounded, that were my inner child, etc. So I went down this pathway, discovering all these different modalities to help me uncover some of these deep wounds that I was the pure dark night of the soul. And I did a couple of retreats that were absolutely brutally harrowing, where you just had to be completely authentic and honest. And these sound ceremonies that were almost like ayahuasca, just purging and releasing. And I did that for about 9 years. And other incidences where you go through crises and then you have to just face this pain that perhaps you've been distracting yourself from. Perhaps you've been projecting and blaming and not taking responsibility for your own wounds and your own trauma, and what's everybody else's fault and nobody else understands me. So through that work, I guess I went through a lot of my shadows. And then I knew there was something else for me. I was working as a counselor in a school after I left the prison, and I would get these intuitive hits with kids, and I knew that they would tell me what was wrong with them. And I'm like, oh, this is probably happened something when you were younger, where I would understand their whole family without them telling me information. I didn't realize that was intuition because it comes in as a thought. And I'd started listening to all these podcasts of like past lives and channeling and all these mystical sort of spiritual podcasts. So I was very curious about psychic abilities, very curious about channeling. And then I ended up having a session with this medical intuitive. And this was 2 years ago. And at the end of the session, I was trying to get some help for my knee. At the end of the session, he just said to me, Peggy, you have all the gifts and you're a medical intuitive. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, oh, no, I'm going to send you clients because I've got a waiting list and you're in Australia. I've got clients from Australia. And he just was he could just see the energy and he could just see my potential. And he just saw past my whole irrational brain going, hang on, I've got a mentor. I don't know what you're talking about. So I had to learn to trust my cognizance. And I joined him on a bunch of calls. And I'd never really tuned into a body. So basically, I said, the first time I tuned into a body, I said, oh, do you have pain in your left knee? And they said, yeah, I've got pain in my left knee. I said, oh, okay. And then and I said, okay, you've got pain in your left. I could feel all these mirrored symptoms in my own body, and I could intuitively hit. And then I was like, oh, something happened when you were 8 years old. There's a fear stuck in C5 of your neck. oh yeah, I fell off a horse. And so I said, oh, okay, let's release that fear. So I could see these incidences and these emotions caught in people's bodies in specific places and specific times. And then I would hold a frequency of love and light and bring in channeled light language transmissions. And they would say, oh, my pain's gone. So it was like, oh, did that work? And so that's how it all started. Working with this mentor and me just discovering that I had this gift of helping people release pain, emotional traumas from their body. And now I get a lot of clients that I help them understand their soul purpose and help them understand their own intuitive gifts. So that's been very rewarding work to sit with people going, no, you're clairvoyant. I can feel it. I can feel your third eye. Oh, do you get precognitive hits? Yes. I said, oh, you talk to dead people. Yes. So it's this beautiful, it's the teacher in me wanting to help encourage this person to find out all these wonderful, I call it unwrapping gifts. This is what I'm doing. We just take off the layers of life to help people to shine the light on this. Everyone is this beautiful gift. They're pure unconditional love. They're fractals of source energy, of infinite source energy. And I just help them remember that's essentially what I'm doing. And it's a privilege to be able to sit in that space and hold people and say, no, your authentic self is just so beautiful. And you just have to remember that. So that's what I do.
Mm. That's a lovely story. Obviously, you suffered, as we all do, through those very difficult times, but I always love the silver lining where it led you, right? Because you couldn't have ended up there without having gone through that. And it never ceases to amaze me the people that show up at the right times to help you through that transition and help you understand that you're actually standing in your own way, that there's all these things that you're carrying that you don't have to, and all these things that you're capable of that you don't realize you are. And that's a lot of what we talk about here on the podcast is just raising the awareness for the listeners that, hey, have you experienced this? And maybe you did, but you didn't know what it was. And maybe you are already receiving information, but you don't know what to do with it, or you're not opening yourself to it. And the possibility that it could be completely changing the way you're existing in life in your body. And so for me, what caused my giant remembering that led me to create the podcast was a medical crisis. It was multiple
Mm,
medical crises. And that attention that really needed to be paid to the body and that understanding of the connection that goes beyond Western medicine is what was really missing and creating my dis-ease that medications weren't going to help.
mm,
And so I really had to figure that out on my own and start to allow my gifts to come back in. And that's what I did. And when I did that, all these people showed up that reinforced that and supported me in stepping out into the public eye to do that and me finding my service and my purpose and so on. And that's really what has led you to be here today to share your story. So it's funny
yeah,
how
I
that
love
works.
that. It's so funny how we have to go through these difficult medical crises to have deep realization that we need to shift or change, or that there is a different perspective of life, and that we are much more. Yeah, I think we get a lot of nudges, and then sometimes we just get hit by a Mack truck, I
Mhm.
say, to
Yeah,
help
when
us
you're not paying.
shift when you're not paying attention to the
Hmm.
nudges. Yeah, I say that so many times to my clients. Yeah, so it is just part of the journey. And I remember when I first started channeling information and it was coming through and it felt this huge expansion in my heart chakra. And I started to get sick because sometimes when you're releasing, you can have physical symptoms like cold symptoms or infections, and it's just the density is releasing. It can be quite
Mm.
normal after a very intense energy session or a big upgrade or and I was doing my day job and I was still doing all the healing work in the evening with my mentors and through the European clients. And I started to get a sore throat because I could feel my throat chakra expanding and my chest expanding, and I didn't rest. I should have taken the day off. Started get a little bit of a cough, should have taken the day off. And then I said, no, I'll just get it. I'll book somebody in and help me with the healing to release this. No, the message was rest, rest, and I didn't. And I ended up with pneumonia. So it's like, how can you're on the spiritual journey, you're completely aware of what's happening, but you didn't listen to the basic message coming through, which was just do nothing and rest. So that's, I think as women, we're sometimes we do need those huge, like an absolute knee injury or something really physically debilitating for us to stop, because it's in that pause where you can just be and sit with all your thoughts and feelings and emotions, and then you can actually release it. Yeah, because we're so busy distracting ourselves. Yeah, and I
Yes,
think it's
being still is one of the hardest things. Being unproductive, being what we would say is quote unquote lazy, but it's just allowing to rest and not just at night. That's really hard for some people.
extremely hard. Yes, I find it very difficult too. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Yeah, I think the rest and recovery is so important because if I don't do that, then I can't be in full alignment for my clients. So,
Right.
yeah. And so it's got a different, it's funny how I need it to do it for other people rather than
Yeah,
just myself. That's just the
it's
way it
true.
goes.
Yes. And to get back to those little nudges, they do come in a variety of ways. So, of course, one of them is the physical symptoms. But as we know, when we start working in the quantum field, the physical symptom is actually almost the end stage of the notice, and that it actually begins in the ethereal body, outside the physical body, in that spiritual space. And that can be just as debilitating, but it eventually formulates and manifests into a physical problem. And so if we can address it before it gets to that point and start listening to other little nudges. So nudges during the day where we're getting thoughts or messages and we're not sure whether they're our own or someone else's. And so we're not sure whether to
Mm.
pay attention to them or to act on them. And then we're also getting little nudges while we're sleeping.
Yes,
And we may or
I,
may not be paying attention to those. So I
yeah.
know that you have dream work as part of your repertoire. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Funny that you say the nudges because prior to understanding what I was meant to do, like I saw all of these different, I just needed readers. I kept seeing psychics and readers going, what am I supposed to do? Because I kept searching online and nothing really resonated with me. I didn't know what course I wanted to take. I was like, do I become a psychologist? Do I do this energy healing work? Like I couldn't resonate. But I was at nighttime. I was dreaming, and I'd have these dreams where I'm jumping off these cliffs and I'm just soaring through the sky. And so I knew that it was like this very strong message of surrender, but that didn't actually make any sense to me. I just thought I was free falling, and it just felt scary. But other times and this is one of these woman who was doing this, did Akashic Records reading for me. She said to me, so in my dreams, I was always hunting, like I was running from people, but I was chasing people, and I would chase them. Then I would like not very nice things I would do to them, but I would be destroying them. And this woman who read my Akashic Records, she just said, "Oh, you're hunting. You're like a hunter in the dream, in the astral realm. You are actually killing entities and hunting demons in the astral realms." And I thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was like some kind of warrior in my dream. So I started paying attention to that. But prior to that was probably in January. And then I didn't have my reading with the medical intuitive until March. So for 3 months, I'm like, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'd wake up exhausted. And then, of course, when I actually started getting a lot of clients, the very first podcast I had, it was like, oh, demon hunter entity. So I got all these clients with a lot of attachments and darkness attached to them. And then, of course, I was doing it during the day. So I don't know if that, yeah, if that makes sense from a dream analysis perspective from your end, but yeah, I could feel this. I was awake. I'd have these lucid dreams where I was fully awake and lucid of what I was doing. And I'd wake up exhausted. So it was full work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, I don't want to do that anymore in the astral realm. Thank you. I want to have sleep so I can recover. And it has
Right.
stopped actually. Yeah. So I just
Okay.
do it during the day now when I'm awake.
Yes, that's a good bargain. Yes. And lucid dreaming is a really good pathway to resolving nightmares, undesirable experiences, shall we call them, in the dream world or the spiritual world or the astral world, because it really allows us to have agency
Mm.
and feel like we are the creators. When you step into that role in a lucid dream, you realize that it doesn't, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm on autopilot here, and I don't need to be. The moment you attain that lucidity, and there's something very powerful in waking up, as it were, even though you're still asleep, waking up in that other realm and what's possible as a result of that. I've had flying dreams my entire life, starting when I was very young, and they were always, mostly always amazing. But there
Oh.
were times where I was also struggling to get off the ground. But there
Mm.
were also times where I was just soaring, and many times, usually just soaring, and very much enjoying it. Seeing beautiful landscapes where I'm like crying because it's so beautiful, just
Oh.
joyously beautiful landscape I can't explain. And that was part of the reason that I was like, what is happening in this other world? And it seems so important and significant, yet other people either weren't having those experiences or weren't talking about them or weren't willing to remember them. And
Mm.
so that really got me into the whole area of dream work as, hey, there's so much going on here. And when I started doing dream work as a real healing modality, all these guides started showing up and all these amazing scenarios started happening in the dream. I wasn't just grocery shopping. It was
Wow.
people showing up, saying things that I needed to start recording them. Of course, the more I recorded, the more I remembered, to the point that I almost couldn't sleep because I was remembering so many. So I think that there's a healthy limit to that. And like you
Mm.
said, you can create those boundaries too. You can say, I don't want to have this dream anymore. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to go to this place anymore. And how empowering is it that you can then actually affect your subconscious?
Yeah, I had no idea. Somebody advised me just to say that, and it has certainly made a huge difference. So I could feel more relaxed. I just want to say no, no more hunting entities in the astral realm. And yeah, that seemed to work. But I love the memory of your flying because it is so beautiful when you're flying through your dream. And for me, it's like I jump off and it's always a cliff or a mountain face and I'm going down, but then all of a sudden, then I start to glide, and then I
Mm.
can control and soar so close to the landscape. And it's just this, it's so freeing. And I guess, yeah, I look forward to the day when we can actually one day do that as in our 5D ascension. People say, oh, it's coming. I say, okay, I'd love to try that one day. Maybe it is. I
Yes.
don't know. Yeah, it's
Yes. I think
beautiful.
the understanding of the dream world is so limited right now. And we're referring to this whole third of our lives with one word, dream. And it's not, it can't be confined to that. It's so much bigger than that. And the appreciation and the understanding of it, I think, is still so not here yet.
No. There's so much healing that goes on. And I know my previous mentor, he was in France. He would wake up at 3 p.m. my time and he would just leave me voice notes about what happened in his dream. So he'd been taken up here and worked on there. And then they were giving him messages here. And there was just this stream of consciousness that would just come out of him every morning in these voice notes. And I would say, oh, wow, that's really cool. This is what they did. And then I would get channeled messages about what this meant, what happened, what upgrade he got, what happened to his heart space. So it was quite an enjoyable part and the most crazy things, but he remembered in such great detail. So I'm not as fortunate as him as waking up with that incredible detail. And since I connected with your podcast, I started going, using my voice notes and trying to really find. But I feel like most of my dreams it's just rehashing different scenarios of the day. And yeah, so I'd love to get more visions and more connection, but most of my connections to guides are in my own meditations and through my sessions with my clients. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to enhance that aspect of take me on board any 12D ship and upgrade me when I'm willing and open to it.
Ask and you shall receive.
I will. I'll see what happens tonight. I'll have to let you know.
Yeah, and that technique is really called dream manifesting, where you're creating a scenario that you want to happen, or like you said, an experience that you want to have, or a guide that you want to see, and really making that intent before you go to bed, whether it's writing down your intention or just meditating on it for a while. It's very powerful what comes through after that. And you'll also find the replay of the day dreams tend to happen scientifically in the lab. They feel those happen earlier in the night. And the epic dreams where it felt like a year happen later in the night in the early morning hours. And so if you are the kind of person that wakes up at 3 or 4 a.m. and lies there for an hour wide awake and then you fall back asleep, that is actually a technique called wake back to bed that they have for lucid dreaming. That if you're up for a while right before that long epic period, that then you will go back into a dream that you're not really in for that long, and then it's time to wake up again, and you tend to remember those long ones. I wake up multiple times throughout the night, and so I will sometimes write it down, sometimes won't, but by the time I wake up, I can probably remember three to five each night, and you have about 5 to 7. So
Wow.
there's a lot going on and a lot of opportunity. But I found that the more you pay attention, the more they're like, oh, okay, we can get her this way. Let's send all of our information this way. And that it's a fire hose of information all of a sudden when you have that. But for some people, I think it's just really important to recognize that you do have that agency. You can control that. You can ask for that. And just talking about dreams, anybody who's listening to this podcast, it's going to give a suggestion to your subconscious just by listening to us talk about it. And when you go to bed tonight, say to yourself, I will remember my dreams tonight. I will remember my dreams tonight. Just say it a couple times. And when you wake up, give yourself some pause. Give yourself a moment to just think about what you were just doing. And you'll forget about 50% of it in the first 5 minutes. So you don't have to lay there very long, but just long enough to see if you can remember a couple things. And once you do remember a couple things, then it starts to come back more and more.
I love that advice. I also love the advice of asking and you shall receive because so many of my clients, they're spiritual and they're on this journey and they're connected, but they don't ask the archangels or their masters or their guides for support and to help release or process anything. So it's a very similar, you literally just have to ask. And sometimes when I tune into clients, they're quite funny, some of the guides. They're just standing there with their arms going, she never asks us. So I go, so I said, your crown is really connected, but do you ask for help? And they say, oh no. I said, they've got their arms folded and they're saying, you better ask. So so during the day and also nighttime. So they're just there wanting to support you. And it's the
Yes.
same thing. I get people to connect to Mother Earth and I can feel this resistance with their feet, with the visualization I'm trying to do. And I say, do you like asking for help? Oh, no, I don't like asking for help. I said, okay, let's explore that, right? Let's
Yeah.
release that subconscious programming. A lot of it's subconscious programming of the fear or the not wanting to rely on someone. It could be past life related. It's usually from something from their childhood. They've just learned to be quite independent, not rely on anybody, and that way they don't get hurt. But gosh, the law of the universe says you have to ask. And if you don't ask, they're not there for you. So
Yeah, a
that's
lot
how
of
it
people
works.
don't know that. It's not to say that your guys aren't helping you, but there's a lot more help that's available when you're willing to accept it, when you're willing to allow it in, and when you're willing to pay attention. So when you start to say, okay, let's just do an experiment. I'm gonna watch tomorrow how many times I see this, or there's no way I'm going to see this because I'm not even leaving the house tomorrow. But then here comes going right by your house, right? So it's like when you pay attention and you start to ask, I really like that you were that skeptic to begin with, because sometimes that's where people are starting when they find my
Mm,
podcast. They're curious enough to give it a listen, but they're still like, I don't know if I buy this. I want to experience it for myself. I need proof. And,
oh, yeah.
the thing with spirituality is, on the one hand, there is no proof, and on the other hand, there's tons of proof. It's the kind of proof that you can't share, you can't give it to someone and they'll believe it, but you
Mm,
will have no doubt when you experience it. And it's
yeah.
subjective.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I think in the early part of my journey, because I don't get the visualizations like other people, they say, "Oh, I can see this," and or they would see the 3D body. Mine literally just comes in as a thought, but I get a thought vision, if that makes sense. And I would say, "Oh, Mary Magdalene's here. Oh, I talk to Mary Magdalene all the time." And then I was like, "Oh, okay." So it's just this constant confirmation that whatever was coming in my head was just exactly what that person experienced. Or the other side is that they might have these thoughts like, I think my Archangel Michael I work with, I said, oh no, he is here. So then I'm helping them confirm that their signs and the things that they're seeing, it's real, and it's real. Like, this is the thing. When I started going down the rabbit hole of spirituality, I was really clinging to all those people with PhDs in physics or biology or biochemistry or psychiatrists. If you're talking about past lives, then when you've looked at it this from a scientific perspective, and all this data and all these children are saying these things about past lives, and it has to be true. So I was really clinging to that scientific side of things. And it's interesting because a lot of my clients have these science minds as well. They don't realize that they're quite connected because their brains are thinking, no, this is just a thought I've come in. I said, no, this is, you're channeling pure source energy. Like, your thoughts are like, you have access to, I call it the cloud, and you're getting emails all the time. You just don't realize it's, your heart is so open, and you're in this sort of divine creational service. You don't even realize this is what you're doing because there's no ego. You're really wanting to help humanity. And when you're in that particular space, you're much more open to all that stuff coming in. When you're just literally wanting to serve, and you let your ego out of the way and you're not attached to the outcome, that's where I see the people that have the most messages and the most connection, their third eye and their crown. It's because their heart space is so open. They've let go of their resentment and their anger, and it doesn't stay on them. They've had many lifetimes perhaps where they've gone through those soul lessons as a human, and then in this lifetime they're, oh, I just want to help people. And yeah, so I think it's important to say that the more that you sit from your heart space and release those lower density emotions, the greater your connection and your ability to receive those messages. So that's
Absolutely.
something I see that a lot in clients. Yeah.
Yeah, and fear is the lowest vibration and love is the highest. So you can't heal yourself with something you're afraid of. Yes, a lot of people talk about surrender, but I think it's important to understand that you will resonate with what's right for you also. So don't force yourself into something that doesn't feel like it's a match for you, because there's tons of modalities that are available for this healing work, and they all lead to the same awareness. So for anybody that's listening and saying, yeah, but I never really was interested in Reiki, or astrology didn't make sense to me, or whatever it is, you will find that the right thing for you is going to cross your path. and it's going to feel right. And then when you follow that, it's going to lead you to more and more things and more people. And that's how you know you're on the right path. And
Yeah.
I love just starting each day saying, I wonder what it's going to bring. I wonder who I'm going to cross paths with today. And it's exciting because I, it doesn't advertise. It's not predictable. And it's not something that I spend too much time thinking about because I want to just let it arrive.
I love that. It's the state of wonder that's really, and the curiosity, and just, it's like you're completely surrendering to the possibility and just trusting that you're held by life. Yeah, I love that one. I love that word wonder. I'm gonna use that because I try to set the intention like, how can I be of divine creational service today? So I just try to say it like that. But yeah, I love the I wonder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's not to
yeah.
say that
And
I don't worry. I worry a lot.
yeah.
But I also like to say, I like to ask, show me how easy it can be.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I
I'm
think the two
convinced
can
it's going,
exist.
yeah, because I'm convinced it's going to be difficult, and then I'm going to have to really work very, very hard to
Uh-huh.
what I want to achieve. And so that's what I ask for is show me how I don't have to do that, how easy it could be.
Oh, yeah. I had a client say one time to me, she was channeling, and I said, "Oh, do you have messages?" She said, "Oh, the message is, what if it was supposed to be easy?" And I put that on my wall. I loved that so much. And it's just like this question we can ask ourselves or just suggest, and it just softens the worry. And I think there's the paradox is like you can surrender and still have anxiety, but you just acknowledge the anxiety and then you can let it go. You don't want to spiritually bypass it and say, "Oh, I trust," when inside, because that those feelings get stuck and I see them and they come out physically. So there's this balance of saying it's okay to feel anxiety and it's okay to release it. So that
Mhm.
resistance creates all that tension in the body. It's like this is the paradox, right? Like you can worry about what's going to happen today, but you can also wonder and then be curious about and be excited. So it's because there's like excitement and anxiety can go together, which is totally fine as long as you have this sort of like hope and optimism. That's the baseline.
Yes, optimism is the key, as opposed to, oh, today's going to be so difficult, and I know that this is going to happen, and because then you're just magnetizing that to happen to yourself. So, if you had three tips for someone about working with a medical intuitive or how they could prepare to work with you, how would you explain that?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot of people that I see, they're quite spiritual anyway. You really have to trust that your body is ready to release. Because if there's any skepticism, oh, I wonder if she's going to know, or if there's any kind of you have to prove it to me. I'm not a miracle worker. We are working together. We're working in tandem. And if you think that I can miraculously help you release things, I can't. It really has to, I can help you identify things, but you have to have this willingness to go to whatever it has to be gone to and to release it. So it's really important to trust that your body has this incredible power to release and heal itself. You're doing your own healing. I like to say we're on a river, it's going really fast, and I just throw you this rope and I'm like holding you over to the still point. I'm just pulling you to the still point because I might be a bit more at the still point than you, but you're doing your own releasing. So trust that your body is ready to release. Ask yourself beforehand, where am I holding on to resentment? Where am I holding on to victimhood? Where am I holding on to suffering? Because resentment is such a difficult thing to shift. It's very hard for me to help you release your resentment. How are you feeling? Are you, and not that there's anything wrong with like you allow yourself to feel resentment, allow yourself to feel the anger, and then allow yourself to let it go. If there's been, I can help you cut the cords with those people. I can help you perhaps release subconscious programming about past lives or pre-verbal things that might have affected your. But if you're stuck in suffering and victim mode, it's very hard for me to help you. So that's the shadow work that you might need to do. So the best sessions I have are with people that have they've done the therapy, they have this self-awareness, they understand perhaps what's going on for them, and they're just ready to release. So that really helps too. The other thing to prepare is just on a practical level, no alcohol or drugs or anything like that, or Bluetooth devices that kind of can affect the energy of me being able to read you. But also trust that your whatever's for your highest good is going to happen on the day. So some people say, oh, I've got this knee problem, and then I spend the whole time on their throat chakra. I say, listen, the guides are coming in. I just go with what the messages are. I can't. So you just have to be open to whatever comes through. You just, as I said, like I just set the intention for whatever is going to come through for your highest good, for your highest good and the highest good of the collective and my highest good. And that's what I do. So I hope that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Shadow work is so important because you really get to connect more to your intuitive gifts the more that you release and have an understanding of what,
Hmm.
what are there's nothing wrong with shame and guilt and all those things. And we just have to let them go.
Yes, they're covering all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, where
Yeah.
can people find you that are interested in working with you?
Thank you. So I'm at peggyo.com.au and I have a YouTube channel as well, Peggy Oberthier Medical Intuitive. And I also have a Instagram, which is very small and I just started and I'm just starting to post. Yeah, and it's just my surname, Peggy Oberthier. So you can find me. I'm the only one in the world, so I'm very easy to find. There's no other Peggy Oberthier. So if you Google
Lovely.
me, yeah, there's lots of different podcasts you can listen to get a little bit more of an understanding of how I work, etc.
And I will include all your links in the show notes as well.
Thank
Well,
you
thank you
so
for
much.
being here today, Peggy, and sharing your story and the gifts that you have brought to the world and the service that you're doing out there for everyone. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for creating this beautiful platform for me to share my experiences and for your beautiful holding space for me to feel relaxed and authentic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.